between areas of knowledge in English and Spanish. He's really a citizen of many worlds. Our next speaker is Mr. Alan Russell. Alan is a gentleman that I truly admire. I asked him what he wanted me to say about him before this. He said, just tell him that I'm better looking than most shelter operators. And I would sell him very, very short. He is a brilliant man, former professional pilot, also someone who moves very comfortably between the US and Mexico, and one of the best in his field. Please help me welcome Mr. Alan Russell. And I do think he's more handsome than most.
Thank you, Cesar. Thank you. Glad to be here. And I appreciate you being very patient with your time and letting us present our companies to you today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about several topics. I'm going to introduce our company, and the important part of that is telling you what a shelter is. You've been hearing about shelter companies. There's several of us here, and I know some of you are asking the question, what is a shelter? And why is there a shelter company? I'm going to get into that a little bit so we can understand. And then I'm going to talk to my Mexican friends in the audience about understanding the U.S. culture. And I'm going to talk to my American friends in the audience about understanding the Mexican culture. Because if we openly talk about it and we understand each other, we're going to be more successful as we move forward. And it's not being critical of one way or the other. It's that understanding that's important. Okay, my passion for Mexico. First, I want to show you this. This is me in this photograph. This was just before the 2007 recession that began in 2007, okay? So you can see what happens when you're in the manufacturing business and the Great Recession descends upon you, okay? Not exactly true, but this is me 30 years ago, just before I became the first plant manager for Tecma. So there is a cause and effect of what happens in the manufacturing industry, okay? But this is just to prove to you that my hair was dark at one time. Our company's celebrating 30 years this year, and we're proud of it. I can't believe I can even say that, as I never thought I would be doing anything for 30 years. But I just signed up for another 30. So you're going to be hearing from me for as long as I can have my help. The Tecma Shelter Program. I want to talk about what a shelter program really is. Now, if you ask my father, who's a rancher, what a shelter is, even today, after 30 years, he'll tell you it's a pole barn where he keeps his tractors. So in different cultures, there's different meanings for terms. In this, we're talking about sheltering our clients in Mexico from the complexities of being in Mexico. And it's not that Mexico is any more different than it is anywhere in the world, or any more complex. It is just different. And if we were going to go to Manhattan and build a building or to start a business, I would need a shelter program to help me. Because I would make every mistake in the book and get in trouble with every agency before it happened and before I got over it. Now, the shelter provider becomes your partner in Mexico. That's not a legal term, that's an operational term. We embrace and become partners with our clients. I assure you that using a shelter is the lowest cost possible to enter Mexico and to get set up and to operate. Unconditionally, and we can prove that on a day-in and day-out basis. It'll minimize risk for the client as they come into to the foreign country. And if your shelter provider is doing things correct, the border will become invisible. The border, it shouldn't be any different than moving a factory across town, much less moving into a foreign country. There's a lot more hoops to jump through, but that's your shelter provider's responsibility. And you as a manufacturer, concentrate on what you do best. And that's manufacture and ship your product to your clients. and your shelter provider takes care of all the administrative work that's required behind that. So it's a great model, very effective. This is a little illustrative picture of how a shelter works. It's an umbrella. The client's underneath the umbrella. And all of the things coming down on top of that umbrella are the complexities, the distractions for manufacturing. None of those issues coming on that umbrella have anything to do with producing and shipping quality product. It's all the indirect support requirements. Tecma, by the numbers, we're about 5,000 strong in Mexico. 2.7 million square feet of manufacturing space, and all of that is hosting our clients who are producing and shipping quality products all over the world. A little commercial, we heard my friend Emilio earlier this morning talk about the culture in Mexico and how you had to build an environment around your factory to attract quality talent. You've heard of this great place to work. If you're from the United States, you'll see that Southwest Airlines, Microsoft, Dell Computer have the honor and the recognition as a great place to work. I'm very proud of this distinction that Tecma, as a manufacturing company in Mexico, has the honor and award of a great place to work. So it helps us draw, attract, recruit quality talent into the company with that reputation. It's all about how people are treated. It's an emotional salary that we'll talk about later. My passion for Mexico. You'll hear people question and challenge the stability of the workforce. If you hire people, how are they going to stay with you? Are they stable? Can you count on them? This photograph expands on an annual basis in our company with people that have been there more than 15 years. We have retirements in the company continuously after 30 years. We're talking just today about a gentleman that's in a key position with the company that has just turned 65 and is going to retire, but has a son working in the company now. So we have a lot of social events revolving around the company. It's not uncommon in Mexico for a father and a son to be working in the same company, brothers, sisters to be working in the same company. In the United States, we think that's a problem. In Mexico, it's common. And you'll see a self-disciplinary action happening within the family. Because if a brother brings in a brother or a father brings in a son, they're going to police their own. They're not going to allow the family to be discredited or disrupted as a result of somebody not performing. So it works. Now, I also learned a long time ago that I cannot bring my culture to Mexico and think it's going to work. We are in Mexico. We have to adapt to the Mexican culture. Example, if the United States is playing Mexico in a soccer game, you better bring some televisions into the cafeteria or you're going to have high absenteeism, okay? And that's really the only tension time there is between the two cultures, especially when it's World Cup time. But if it is down to the World Cup time and we're into the finals, you better participate with the workforce or you're going to have absenteeism. It's just a fact. If the Pope is going to come to town, just plan on shutting down for the day. And it may even be a day and a half before you get back up to speed. If you don't, and don't plan for it, you're going to suffer. So adapting to the culture is what it's all about, and recognizing the priorities of the culture that we're in. We have in Tecma this past year 60 total soccer teams. I think 11 of those are actually female teams. It's the Tecma World Cup. I mean, it is taken as serious. Look at the size of those trophies. I mean, it is a major competition. But we have a lot of social programs to draw the people together and create an environment which creates this emotional salary that I'm talking about. Mexico Pride. Our cafeteria services have won the highest award offered by the Mexican government, which is typically reserved for resort facilities. For a manufacturing and industrial cafeteria service that that can receive these coveted awards is a truly remarkable milestone. And I think it comes from me being raised on a farm. I tend to think with my stomach. If I don't eat well and eat often on a regular schedule, I don't think well. And I think this young workforce we're talking about, average age of about 24 years old, it is a requirement that they have good nutrition to do a good job. Therefore, they're thinking about their priorities. The emotional salary. Now, we have to pay people to come to work. They have to earn a salary, a living wage that they can take home to their families. But for them to stay with you and be consistent and be loyal, there has to be an emotional element behind that. So we have two kinds of salary, the monetary kind and the emotional kind. That emotional kind comes from being a great place to work. They've got to be excited to come to work, excited to see their friends, excited to do a good job. Someone came up with a data point that over 70% of the social time for our employees revolves around the factory. With that data point, you realize that you have a responsibility as a factory operator and owner to create a healthy, wholesome environment for those employees. If you don't, where are they going to spend their social time? Or if it's not a wholesome environment, how's that social time going to be spent? So it's important to address those cultural issues much more in the U.S. We visited a client, it's a current client. I went to Colorado day before yesterday to visit them. And the senior vice president of operations gave us a personal tour of the facility. And as we walked through the plant, there were some 300 people in the facility, and they were going to move part of the operation to allow for some backfill of some higher tech work in Colorado and move some labor-intensive stuff into our facility in Juarez. As we walked through the plant, the technology was incredible. The facility was immaculate. It was absolutely impressive. But he never said hello, how are you, or engaged in eye contact with a single employee in the entire facility as we did our tour. And I watched this interaction, and I realized how much work we have to do with this client to get them on the other side of this cultural gap so they understand that that type of management will not work successfully in Mexico. Oh, you can get by. You can have an average plant if you treat people that way. But we are not here to be average. We're here to do superior work in everything that we do. So we have to adapt, and we have to take these individuals into account. Individuality, that's an important part of the Mexican culture. Now, we hear that Asians do things in a group. There's no individuality. Mexicans do not like to just be considered a number. From a very young age, they start developing their own identity, and they enjoy and want to be respected as that identity going forward. Let me demonstrate. Just check this out. These are signatures of three very important people in Mexico. The first one is Abraham. He's a very important young executive in the technical organization, and he's sitting right here. And that's his signature. Look at that. I mean, he has developed his identity. And it's unique, it's his, it stands out, it's separate. The middle one, Mario, another executive with the technical organization that's grown up in the company for the last 16 years as an IT professional. That's his signature. And look at the one on the far right. That's the president of Mexico. President Peña Nieto. So there is, look at the identity. From a young age, they work on this because it is who they are going forward in their life. And we can never forget to take them into account because that identity is so important. Never have them be a number. Have them be an individual. This is a gringo signature. See the difference? Alan Russell. And that big swoop of the R, that's me trying to be a Mexican, which I'll never be, okay? And I've always been envious. I mean, 30 years ago, we hired our first young secretary. She was probably 18 years old, and she was the receptionist, the secretary, and the greeter, did all of these things. And I had her sign a document. She was a very shy young lady. I had her sign a document one day for some reason she had to sign, and it was a procedure. I mean, she got organized, and she had room, and she got the pen, and she tested it and made sure that it wrote properly, and she signed her name with as much grace and dignity as you can imagine. And it told me something, that at any educational level, any political level, any executive level, that identity is valuable. So we must respect it. Let's continue with these cultural differences. In the United States, I want you Mexicans to understand that work is a priority. The wife in the United States, if they're working and they're taking care of the house both. Okay? Dual roles, very typical. Mobility is quite common, yeah. The wife's got a car, the guy's got a car, the kids got a car, they may have 2 cars. Then they got another car for weekends. So it's a different thought process. You take the Mexican culture into account, we've got to respect the fact that the family is the first priority, it's not work. Now they gotta work to take care of the family, but it's not the first priority. The wife fulfills the domestic role, and mobility is limited. You won't find multiple cars typically in the workforce or in even middle management. United States, money is a status symbol, and we know that. In Mexico, title and position can be just as valuable as money. So respecting those titles and understanding, very important. Whoops, I leaped. Personal appearance. In the United States, you see pictures of people working in Google and they got their camouflage on and a t-shirt, and personal appearance is not a priority with the young people or the professional level people in the United States. It's secondary to performance. They don't care what you look like, just get the job done. All right? Then the formalities often sacrifice for efficiency. Formality, I mean, they may not come into a room and say hello and have a little social time and pour their coffee before a meeting. They walk in and sit down and get right at it. And that's a sacrifice given in lieu of efficiency, or to efficiency. And just get to the point type approach. In Mexico, dress and grooming are a status symbol. I mean, look around this room, they're professionals. When you have a meeting with a lawyer, an accountant, an executive in Mexico, you'll see grooming to the perfection in their job. And even as at the factory level, you will see that personal appearance is a priority. It's more of an old world formality. Etiquette and manners is a top priority. Now let's talk about time. Any of you that have operated on both sides of the border, have Mexican friends, have to understand that there is a different concept as related to time. And let me explain. Let me give you an example. You'll have your operation in Mexico. You become friends with the people that you work with. And let's say one of them is going to have a dinner party or a pachanga at their house. Okay? Now, they come to work every day on time, and you think time-wise and culturally you're equal and you understand everything. So they're going to invite you to come. They're going to invite you as a gringo to come to their house, which is a big honor. That's reserved, okay? And as a courtesy, when you say, what time should I be there? As a courtesy, because they know that you're kind of an earlier type person, they're going to say, come at 8:30. And now, if you were in the United States and you were going to go to somebody's house for dinner, they'd say, come about 7. Okay? So 8:30, okay, well that's kind of late for me, but I'll come. As a gringo, you show up at 8:30, and you're going to be the only one there. And it's going to be awkward. It'll be the maid, the dog, and maybe one of the kids will entertain you because the lady of the house is probably not even dressed yet. When they say 8:30, they didn't mean 8:30. They meant like later, 9:30. And you're not going to eat until 11. So just accept it. Embrace it. So there is, and we have this cross culture where, yes, They'll be on time in their office in their manufacturing world, but when you go social, when you get outside that factory, you've got to understand you're in a different zone. And scientifically, there's a reason for that. Now look at this. If you see an American's clock on the nightstand, it's probably digital. If you see a clock on a Mexican nightstand, it's probably got rotary hands on it. Something, if there's one at all. Okay? And the scientific difference is monochronic and polychronic. Now, that happened through the Industrial Revolution. When the United States started industrializing, and all developed nations as they were industrialized, developed this time efficiency concept. It's when Henry Ford started the production lines, where you could have any car you wanted, any way you liked it, as long as it was black. Okay, so everything was based on time. This didn't happen in Mexico. So time is approximate. It's not the relevant driver of our everyday. So understanding it will help us work together better. Now we got to talk about this little fellow. Those of you who have heard my presentation before, a year ago, this elephant was the dominant picture in the room. Now, to the Mexicans, let me tell you that saying there's an elephant in the room means that there's something in the room that's there and it's obvious, but nobody wants to talk about it. And what we're talking about is security, okay? And there's an elephant in the room still that most Americans still want to understand. And I'm arming you as Mexicans with answers to the questions, because you're going to be asked still, what about security? Is it safe to be in Mexico? Well, yes it is. During the violence period, let me just give you a data point. El Paso, for an example, there's 4,000 expats, meaning foreigners, that live in El Paso and work in Juarez. During that entire time, there wasn't a single incident of a kidnap or killing of an American expat, or just an expat period, even if they're from Europe or wherever they were. Our industry was not related to their industry that was causing that violence. And we were allowed to continue our business as normal. And that has all gone away now. It's more dangerous, and I'm from Oklahoma, originally, when I was a little bitty manufacturing guy. It's more dangerous to be in Oklahoma City today than it is to be in Juarez, Mexico, from a data standpoint. So, it's not on the radar. It's safe for the employees, and it's safe for your shipment. We do not have a shipment hijacking problem in Mexico. Not even enough to have a data point that I can tell you about. So, ya se voy. El elefante. He's left the room. Nearshore advantages, Mexico is more competitive, shorter lead times. And of course, Mexico creates U.S. jobs. If a product is produced in China, there is zero U.S. content. So those of you who think that you're doing a bad thing or you have an uneasy feeling about taking something to Mexico from the United States, if you take it to Mexico instead of China, let's take the auto industry for instance, 70% of the content of an automobile that's made in Mexico has U.S. content in it. If that car is coming from China, it has no U.S. content in it. So keeping it in North America is an important point when we're competing with China. And let's say at the end of the day, that's our competition. Mexico creates U.S. jobs. Get this data point. Mexico is 46 times closer than China. All right? Those of you who've gone to China about 10 times, you know that that's enough. And you just soon stay in North America. It's not any fun after about 10 times. You miss your kids grow up, you miss the soccer games, you miss all of the social events, you come home, your wife doesn't know you anymore, or just as soon you stay in China for a while longer. Travel in the same time zones, and Mexico is the #2 partner with the United States. So I promise you that even if Donald Trump gets to be president of the United States, nobody is going to interrupt the $650 billion of trade that's going on between Mexico and the United States. It's not going to happen. You can't stop that level of commerce. And I just didn't make all this up. Okay? I tout it, but I didn't make it up. The world press agrees with me. This is Inc. magazine. Is Mexico the new China? Question mark. Everybody's watching in the world and coming to that conclusion. Mexico is becoming a global manufacturing power, and get this, with superior worker productivity. That's Bloomberg, one of the largest press agencies in the world. Los Angeles Times, more U.S. companies opening high-tech factories in Mexico. And this is my favorite one. Who in this room doesn't love Oreos, okay? From now on, the Oreo that you eat will be made in Mexico. It's an astounding worldwide adjustment. All right, why Mexico? It's an incredible country. It's an incredible people with a developed education system. Vast resources. The most significant influence in North America in the manufacturing sector for the next decades to come is going to be Mexico. Those of you in this room that are involved in this industry, that have made the decision to be part of this dynamic and these cultures colliding between the U.S. and Mexico, have picked a career that's going to be very rewarding for the future. One vision, one mission, and we'll have one North America competing with the world. Thank you very much.